Okay, welcome everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the meeting of the Cardiff Capital Region Regional Cabinet on Monday the 9th of October. At just gone 9:30. I'll remind everyone this meeting is being broadcast live and a recording will be available on the website following the meeting. If I can request that members have their cameras on so they're visible, but the officers keep their cameras off unless they're presenting. That way it's easier for me to bring people in as chair. To start with, Liz, any apologies we need to note?
Yes, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Stephen Thomas, and we have Councillor Cunningham with us, Councillor Andrew Morgan, and we have Councillor Webber, Mark Shepherd, Paul Orders, Ellis Cooper, James Williams, Ian Allwood, and Robert Dwyer.
Okay, anything to add there, colleagues? If not, we can move swiftly then to the declarations of interest. Are there any declarations you need to make? If anything comes up during the meeting, you're welcome to inquire with the monitoring officer, and we can take those forward from there. Which brings us to agenda item 3, which is the minutes from the meeting on the 31st of July. Anything that anyone needs to raise from those minutes? If not, if we're all happy with those, we can move straight to item 4, which is the draft statement of accounts for 2022-23 and the draft annual governance statement. And if I hand over initially to Chris on this, Chris.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Just briefly in terms of this report is to present the Regional Cabinet with the draft statement of accounts for 22-23, also including within that then also the draft annual governance statement for the city deal. In terms of the report that's been presented, section 6 of the report notes the Joint Committee draft accounts needed to be signed by the end of June, which I have as the interim section 151 officer. It also notes in paragraph 6 that following the pandemic and other accounting issues around infrastructure, there has been some disruption in the standards of accounts timelines in terms of preparation of accounts, not just affecting City Deal, but probably leaders will be aware, affecting all of the council's accounts. For that reason, the publication of the 22-23 accounts has been extended now to the 31st of December. So the stage today is to present the draft accounts, and these will then be subject to audit. Paragraph 7 of the report notes the contents and structure of the accounts themselves, and the accounts are attached for members at Appendix 1. In terms of paragraph 8, just to reference that the accounts are becoming ever more complex. Part of that is because of the group account requirements, and that's referenced in paragraph 8. And from paragraph 9, we also then reference the draft annual governance statement, which is attached for members' information at Appendix 2 within the report. That's considered all 20 good practice assessment statements. That assessment was led by the City Deal leadership team along with input from the accountable body, and it's assessed strong assurance can be provided against 14 of those statements, 5 being rated as strong to moderate and 1 being assessed as moderate. Paragraph 15 notes the next steps with regards to the accounts process, essentially to advertise now online in terms of public inspection, to provide the accounts and review with external audit, and then subsequently to report back to Cabinet then in the autumn in terms of hopefully then the final accounts before they can be published. I wasn't going to say anything more, Chair. The detail of the accounts is there, and I've got colleagues online that will hopefully help me if there are any sort of specific technical questions. So just to refer members back to the report in paragraph 22, but perhaps also take the opportunity to thank accountable body staff and City Deal staff for their work in getting us to this position. Happy to take any questions.
Right, thank you for that, Chris. Any questions, colleagues, on that report? If not, are we happy to move to the recommendations then? I think they're at paragraph 22. The recommendations are that we, at Cardiff Capital Region Cabinet, firstly notes that the draft statement of accounts for the year ended 31st of March 2023 has been signed by the Section 151 officer, provided to Audit Wales to allow them to commence their audit of the statements, and will be made public, available for public inspection for a period of 4 weeks. And secondly, that we note that the draft annual governance statement document attached at Appendix 2 has also been provided to Audit Wales as part of that audit. Any questions before we move to the vote on that one? Can I have a proposer and seconder for that to aid sort of public understanding for the recording? If you could just state your name verbally and we can take that as proposed and seconded.
Sean Morgan, leader of Caerphilly Council, happy to move the recommendations.
Thanks, Sean.
And Liz Burnett, leader of Vale Glamorgan Council, happy to second.
Thanks both. Sorry, Maureen, did you have a question there? Was that just
no question, Chair? Just with my hand up, ready to vote a bit early, probably.
Brilliant. If I take the voting sequentially as usual, then if I start with Caerphilly, then.
Yeah, happy.
Brilliant. Vale Glamorgan.
Yes, agreed.
Thanks, Liz. RCT.
Happy to support, Chair.
Thanks, Maureen. Cardiff. Have we as
I don't
you
think
managed to
he's
join it?
on the call, Chair.
Okay. Merthyr.
Agreed, Chair.
Newport.
Thank you, Chair. Support.
Thanks, Jane. Barney Gwent.
Agreed.
Thanks, Helen. Monmouthshire.
Agreed, Chair.
Thanks, Marianne. And Torvines agreed. That's 8 votes, so I believe that carries. Anyone I've missed out there? If not, are we happy then to move to the next agenda item, which is item 5, which is the 2022-23 month 4 budget monitoring position. I think back to Chris on this one.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And members will be very familiar, hopefully, now with the monitoring reports that we provide on a regular basis. But this provides the monitoring report as at month 4, so the end of July, given a month 4 position and also a projected full year outturn position. The budget supports, as members will be aware, the City Deal Office and the accountable body support arrangements for the work of the Regional Cabinet. And this is funded from local authority contributions and the wider investment fund top slice. Paragraph 6 of the report notes that as at month 4, actual expenditure incurred and committed amounts to £732,000, which is just over 25% of the annual budget. And the projected outturn position indicates the budget will be underspent by around 162,000 at year end, and that's the current projection. Paragraph 7 to 19 sets out some narrative explaining the key variances at month 4, many of which I'm sure now we'd be familiar with from previous monitoring reports. Probably is worth noting under paragraph 11, the spend against external support. There is an element against the CJC transition expenditure budget. Additional requirements have been included here, identified as the transition gauge momentum, meaning it would be prudent to add a contingency to this budget to cover those eventualities. It's important to note that that increase is being covered by underspend reported elsewhere and within the budget. In terms of the month 4 summary, that just lists out again in terms of the overall position, and paragraph 22 notes that further outturn positions and monitoring information will be provided to future regional cabinet meetings. I wasn't going to pick up anything more on this report, Chair. It's an early indication in terms of a monitoring position for the current year, other than to refer members to the recommendation at paragraph 30.
That's great. Thank you, Chris. Any questions, colleagues, on this one? If not, are we happy then to move to the recommendations at paragraph 30? The recommendation is that Cardiff Capital Region Cabinet notes the actual expenditure, income and projected full year outturn position as at the 31st of July 2023, which is month 4, against its approved 2023-24 revenue budget. Is anyone happy to propose or second that, please?
Liz Burnett, leader Vale Council, happy to propose.
Thanks, Liz. And Geraint?
Yeah, Geraint Thomas, leader of Merthyr Tydfil, happy to second.
Perfect. Thanks both. If I can move to the vote on that then, as agreed. So Liz, do you want to go first then? Sorry, Vale Glamorgan.
Sorry, problems with my mic. Happy to agree, thanks.
Thanks. Geraint, Merthyr,
Happy to agree, Chair.
thanks. RCT,
Agreed, Chair.
thanks. Caerphilly,
Happy to agree.
thanks. Newport,
Thank you, Chair. Happy to agree.
Jane Bonagwent,
Agreed, Chair.
thanks. Monmouthshire,
Thank you, Chair. Happy to agree.
and Torvine, agreed. So that's 8 votes and carried. And please tell me if anyone else comes in so I don't miss people out unintentionally.
I will,
Um,
Chair.
Thank you, Liz. So that is item 5 done. So on to item 6 then, which is the 23-24 annual business plan, the Q1 performance report. I think Kelly's going to lead off on this.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody. So this is Q1 performance against what is now a combined annual business plan for both the South East Wales CJC, so you'll get this report later this morning, and Cardiff Capital Region City Deal. So we're now in year 4 of the 5-year annual business, the 5-year strategic business plan rather. And of course, we take annual extracts. We work to performance targets, which are reinforced via the Regional Economic and Industrial Plan, and deliver against them in order to report our performance to UK and Welsh Government. So a reminder of those overarching objectives: building back better, fairer and greener, building the Cardiff Capital Region, scaling up delivery of the wider investment fund during what is the peak delivery period, making the case for levelling up the Cardiff Capital Region, and supporting our priority clusters and intensive innovation. So you will see that some of the priorities that have translated into this year, 23-24, are around having in place clear plans for our clusters. It's really important that we develop the innovation intensity, launching and delivering against the Innovation Investment Capital Fund, making some strides forward in terms of the regional data ambition, and of course making sure that we've got delivery against projects which have been around for some time now, such as Metro Central, bringing Aberthaw to the fore, and making progress against the strategic development plan and the regional transport plan as required under the legislation for CJCs. So some really good developments in Q1, getting our food project off the ground under the Challenge Fund, which is across Monmouthshire and Cardiff councils. In terms of expenditure, smaller than we hoped, only 4 million against a target of around 12, but that's because things slowed a little bit on Seren Studios and the first investment through the Innovation Investment Capital. Both those things now have caught up fully in Q2. 2 new business cases again were approved in Q1. The Northern Valleys Initiative, some £50 million to invest and target activity in the Northern Valleys. And of course, the Oggy business case, another 45 million on full fibre connectivity right across the region. So as I say, some good news in relation to aspects of things like the UK Competitiveness Index, but some challenges in there as well, especially in terms of levelling up within our region. Really good to see progress now at Barry Docks for our Metro Plus schemes. Severn Tunnel, both those schemes are now complete. The Unleash Conference, UK Reef, all of those things took place in Q1 as well. And you can see a very comprehensive update in relation to the wider investment fund and some reprofiling that we're doing just to make sure that we're utilising, as Cabinet have asked for before, things like capitalisation directives. We're really maximising use of resources. There's a small bit of expenditure being released back into budgets where perhaps projects are not moving forward in the way anticipated. So just as an example, on the compound semiconductor foundry project, there was still about 3 million to draw down. The project is now as complete as it's going to get. So we're just bringing those resources back into the main pot so they can be used in relation to different options and choices as we proceed. Chris has already mentioned the updated AGS for next year, but you'll see a complete AGS action plan for this financial year. You'll see that our internal audit objectives are up to date and met as far as possible. And you'll also see an updated risk register, which I felt was important to enclose at this time, because some of the headwinds that we've been experiencing for some time now around inflation, interest rates, general instability in the economy are having an impact. And when we get onto the investment report later on, you'll see how some of that is playing out in real time. I won't say any more, Chair, because it's a very comprehensive report. I've also included a summary in a separate paper that I sent out, and therefore would refer you to the recommendations which are set out at paragraph 30.
Thanks, Kelly. Any questions, comments, colleagues, on this report? Geraint, do you want to come in first, and then Sean?
Yeah, a quick question for Kelly, then a comment. Obviously, this recording will be for the public, and we do use a lot of acronyms in our world. But could you explain, Kelly, what AGS is, please?
Sorry, I should have said it's the annual governance statement. Sorry, Councillor Thomas.
No, thank you very much. And I welcome the report, Chair and Kelly. Thank you. And to see the the £50 million going into the Northern Valleys is fantastic. So that capital is there, for a lot of people to start up businesses, etc. So looking forward to see what fruit will come from those seeds. Thank you.
Thanks, Geraint. Sean, and then Jane.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Could I just thank Kelly for the report? It's really good news to have the UK Competitive Index confirm something that I very much felt all along with City Deal, that we were making significant progress, and it's great to have that external confirmation of the good work that's going on here. So no questions from me, just that comment, and to say thank you to all the officers and indeed to the investment panel. So all good. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Sean.
Yeah,
that was
sorry, Councillor, if I could just say on that, yes, just a comment, because we did some important work in Merthyr just a couple of weeks ago on the UK Competitiveness Index. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but in terms of proxy measures, it's a longitudinal study. Councillor Morgan, it's 20 years, as we spoke about the other day. This study has been going for all of that time. And I think it gives us the closest proxy to what quality of life and standards of living look like in Wales at this time. So, yeah, I do appreciate your comments. And yes, good news, but still further work to do, I think.
Thanks, Kelly. Jane.
Thanks, Chair. The report states there's a piece on there about social media, and the data shows that hits on social media have dropped a little bit in this quarter that we're looking at. And I just wondered if we've done any kind of investigative work into why that is, or we were considering any other kind of platforms to promote the work of CCR. Because from a personal perspective, I've always found the comms really good, the visuals are excellent, and I just wondered if we'd done any analysis of why that's dipped slightly.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Mudd. I think it's probably because some of our focus at this time is very much on the CJC, and it's difficult to message on that because it's more something that should happen in the background. It shouldn't really be visible to the public eye. So I think it's something about the balance of our resources. But we are looking at our communications across all channels at the moment, just to consider, as you should do, from time to time, how relevant, how resonant are they getting out to the right groups. So there is a piece of work that we've been doing with various publications, editorials, just to make sure that as well as the communications going out there, we're not just broadcasting, we are having meaningful engagement. And I think there's a few changes that we'd like to bring to you in the next few months for consideration, so we can have much more meaningful engagement as part of our communication strategy. So thanks for raising that. It is something that's on the agenda, and hopefully we can have a conversation in the next few weeks about the future of that.
Thanks. All. Any more questions before we move to the recommendations? If not, they're at paragraph 30. I'll just read them out now. It's recommended that Cardiff Capital Region Joint Cabinet considers and, if deemed acceptable, approves Q1 performance report and authorises the Acting Director of Cardiff Capital Region City Deal to formally submit the report, including supporting information to both UK and Welsh governments and other stakeholders as required on behalf of Regional Cabinet. Secondly, approves the proposed changes to the WIF approved capital and revenue budgets as set out in paragraphs 13 and 14 and summarised in Table 1. And lastly, notes the updates against the annual governance statement action plan and the internal audit action plan as set out in the report in Appendix 4 and 5. In addition, notes the progress on CJC activity set out in this report and separately comprehensively reported to the CJC board. Are we happy then to move and second those? Sean?
Yeah, very happy to move, Chair.
Thanks, Sean. Can I have a seconder, please?
Hi, Liz Burnett, Vale Morgan, happy to second.
Thanks, Liz. I think it's either no one or all 10 want to come in at once there. Okay, so we've moved to the vote then. If I take Kafili first then, she moved.
Yeah, happy to agree.
Thanks, Sean. Vale Morgan then.
Yep, happy to agree.
Thanks. Mama Shear.
Happy to agree, Chair.
Thanks, Marianne. Blyna Gwent.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Happy to agree.
Helen Newport.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to agree.
Jane. Merthyr.
Happy to agree, Chair.
Thanks, Geraint. And RCT.
Agree, Chair.
Thank you, Maureen. And Torvine. Agreed. So that's 8 votes in favour, so that's passed. Thank you, colleagues. So we move next to item 7, which is the MIPIM 2024 engagement outline. And over to Kelly.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is one occasion where I won't apologise for using an acronym. I'm afraid my schoolgirl A-level French will not stretch to stating what this means, but suffice to say it's about a real estate, property and sustainable development conference that's held annually in France, and it's called MIPIM. And the purpose of this report really is to set out the approach to the Cardiff Capital Region's participation in attendance at MIPIM in March of 2024. So we've had a couple of years now of sort of getting back to MIPIM, refreshing our branding, putting a new investment portfolio out there, which brings together about £10 billion worth of investment opportunities that stretch right across the region. It's been difficult in the post-pandemic years. The momentum is now starting to build again. And I think based on the feedback that we had from this year, 2023, it has been felt really that there is a big opportunity. There was about 265 interactions last year with prospective investors. And I know from Councillor Mudd and Councillor Thomas and yourself, Councillor Hunt, that, you know, you were sort of talking to publications like the FT, CoStar, Property Weekly. So the Cardiff Capital Region did have the opportunity to really raise its profile and get the nature, the extent, the breadth of those investment opportunities out there and high on that public agenda. So what we're proposing this year in a nutshell is we go again. We attend as Cardiff Capital Region very much in partnership with the Invest in Cardiff team, who do a lot of the legwork, the organisation, which can't be underestimated because this is a huge endeavour. And we refresh some of the branding. The prospectus from last year, I think, is still relevant, but perhaps needs some tweaking and nuancing because context has changed. But we bring back the £10 billion worth of investment opportunities. I think some of them are really getting to a point now where they're ripe for the investor market. And again, the proposal is bearing in mind that, you know, we have to be mindful of the current economic and financial context for local authorities. We invest another £50,000 in participating in the event. That will help with all of those things that we've set out in the report, the cost of a stand, some of the branding, some of the marketing materials, all the things that you need to go and indeed to go well. And again, that will require us to engage in a service level agreement with Cardiff Council to make sure all of that is transparent and open. And the recommendations there really set out what it is we're trying to do, but also providing some delegation to myself in relation to the budget for the Shared Prosperity Fund, which is held by the region, that 3.3 million, because I think one of the clear outcomes that came out of the conversation that we had in Merthyr a couple of weeks ago regarding competitiveness is we do really need to focus on the issue of place branding and really refresh some of the central messages around the investability of Cardiff Capital Region. So I will leave it there, Chair, and I will commend those recommendations to you and happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Kelly. Any questions, colleagues? I know Hugh Thomas would be keen to point out the benefits that Cardiff's realised from a long engagement at MIPIM. You know, I don't think these things come about from sort of single engagements. They come about from that continued engagement across a number of years. Geraint.
Yeah, you know, I think a few years ago, places in the Northern Valleys weren't quite ready for MIPIM, but we are now. I know in my area, you know, we've got the Cyfarthfa project coming online. I know the guys from Redical West were out there last year on the stand. You know, we have the Hoover site, there's the Goat Mill Road area, and we want to develop a town centre. So, you know, the valleys are ripe for investment. So I think it's a place we have to be.
Agree, Geraint. I don't think I've ever talked about Merthyr so much as I did at MIPIM last year, and that's even discussing the rugby. So yeah, it's a very valid point. Any other questions, colleagues? If not, are we happy to move to the recommendations there at paragraph 25, I believe, on this report? It's recommended that we approve CCR's participation at MIPIM and the principles and objectives underpinning the Cardiff Capital Region participation property investment show outlined within the reports. Second, we authorise the director, and that's Kelly, to conclude a service level agreement with Cardiff Council to deliver the 2024 MIPIM programme as set out in the report. And thirdly and lastly, that we delegate authority to Kelly as the Director of Cardiff Capital Region to allocate funding from the CCR allocation of the Shared Prosperity Fund to support any additional activity from the MIPIM programme in line with its agreed funding profile and in accordance with the agreed use of the Shared Prosperity Fund within the Regional Investment Plan. Can I have a mover and a seconder for those recommendations, please?
Happy to move, Chair.
Thanks, Geraint. And a seconder?
I'll second, Chair. Councillor Jane Mead, Leader of Newport.
Thanks, Jane. Right, that's moved and seconded. If I take Merthyr first, then.
Agreed, Chair.
Let's go in. Newport.
Sorry, Chair, problems with the mic. Happy to agree.
Thanks, Jane. The joys of Teams, turning your mic on and off. I've got lots of background noise here too, so I'm trying to concentrate. Mama Share.
Agreed, Chair.
Thanks, Bryna Gwent.
Agreed, Chair.
Helen. Cathilly.
Agreed.
Sean. RCT.
Agreed, Chair.
Thanks, and Blaine Glamorgan.
Agreed.
Torvines agreed, so that's 8 votes, that's carried. Thank you, colleagues. So we move on then to item 8, which is investment zones and the report on regional capacity for innovation investment. And if I hand over to, I think, Colin first on this one.
Yes, thank you, Chair. If it's okay, I'll pop up a few slides just to cover off the headlines of this item. So the reason for the report really is to establish the go-ahead for CCR to investigate not just investment zones, but wider innovation policy in the region. Just to give some background on investment zones. So obviously this was a UK government policy to develop 12 high potential knowledge intensive growth clusters across the UK. As we've covered previously with leaders, it's an 80 million support package that has a split of approximately 35 million of flexible spend, which will cover about 45 million tax incentive. That can cover around about 600 hectares across 2 sites. As the picture features around the UK, currently there's an opportunity for an investment zone in Wales, and we can discuss how that's emerging in a moment. There are different aspects of the policy looking at potential revenue benefits, so research and innovation grants, so on and so forth. Tax incentives such as business rates relief or accelerated development incentives and NI relief. And finally, capital incentives such as business rate retention to support local infrastructure. From a CCR point of view, we've got something which is very, very tightly aligned with our regional economic and industrial plan, and indeed we named investment zones as one of the potential types of activities. So we see a potential here to address that core, those core drivers to be competitive, connected, and resilient, with a strong theme of net zero drawing through it. And with the investment zone, what we've been looking at is really a mixture of the economic assets, the physical assets, and the networking assets, at the nexus of which we see the innovation ecosystem flourish, leading to an improved regional economic well-being. So the CCR proposition that we would start to look at would be about establishing a digital and data powerhouse for economic, social, environmental and sustainable wellbeing. The report outlines our approach that this sits at the centre of a portfolio of what we see as innovation-led growth activities. Slightly differently from some of the other potential propositions you might see around about investment zones, we think that this digital and data theme can cut across a number of areas, including life sciences, advanced manufacturing, digital technologies, creative and green technologies. It's important to note that we do and have identified physical and networking assets. We've identified potential economic assets, and there's really those flexible spend opportunities feed across these sectors, if you like, these clusters, to allow us to leverage the benefits. So what we need to do is to understand and identify those sites for landing, incubating and accelerating growth, allied to the potential for revisiting innovation districts and a renewed innovation district approach. So finally, just to highlight that investment zones bring about significant benefits if they are executed correctly. So really, we're looking here at the opportunity to stimulate regional private investment, that real driver for developing talent and people, to drive the fiscal incentives, especially as a CJC and a new organisation can stimulate private investment in the region. And this notion of business rate retention and the opportunity that provides to borrow and reinvest in public infrastructure. So as part of this, I would note and endorse the recommendation you'll see in paragraph 34 is to note and endorse the key principles outlined in respect to building readiness for regional approach to investment zones. And that would, we suggest, include the convening of a small group to scope potential for the innovation board as set out in the regional economic and industrial plan. And I commend the recommendations on that basis.
That's great, thank you. Any questions on those, colleagues? Jane, sorry, do you want to come in there? And then Marianne.
Yes, sorry, Anthony. I'm just. I just wanted to ask. The report proposes establishing a small group of stakeholders to begin to scope this landscape, and I think it's really important that this happens. But who do we view as these stakeholders, and what is the opportunity to have input into this?
Do you want me to start, Cole? And I'll just
go
give
ahead,
my thoughts. So yeah, I think Councillor Mudge, with you and Councillor Brocklesby both covering the innovation research briefs, I think it needs a meeting first of all to decipher who those main stakeholders should be. Clearly, we've got to have universities on board for this. But we've been talking about the prospect, for example, of innovation apprenticeships, the prospect of young people, any age person, in fact, earning a wage, whilst learning about skills for industries of the future. So FE colleges should be part of that conversation. But I think the point is that whilst investment zones are significant, they're a real and they're a right now proposition. It's going to be hitting us very quickly. We'll also have innovation launch pads. There's going to be innovation accelerators. There's a number of different programmes coming out of UK government, and I'm very keen that we don't look like we're just reacting every time there's an opportunity, like we're speculating. So I think to try and ground that in a much more strategic and thoughtful approach would be a wise thing to do at this time. We need to look like we have that organisation, we have that strong sense of vision, and hopefully bringing together that innovation board would be a key way of realising that. So, Col, I know that certainly aligns with your thoughts.
Yeah, across fundamentally, what we've got to look at here is a portfolio style approach, and that gives us the opportunity to go on the front foot with funders such as UK Research and Innovation, for example. That's what they anticipate from us as a new regional body as well. We've been having those early engagements, and that's what they expect to see from us.
Marianne?
I'm very supportive of us moving into and hopefully winning a bid for an investment zone. And particularly for me, what's important that we we are looking at it across the board, across the region, and we're finding different pathways, socioeconomic as well as networking, in order to ensure that no one's left behind. There's a sense in this way that is spelt out. We've talked before, Kelly, about the need for apprenticeships and connecting our research expertise and strengths in Cardiff and Newport with FE colleges, but also up the valleys and in rural areas. So there's an idea of a hub and spoke where you're connecting and amplifying, where we can get the best economic growth that is sustainable for our region. And I think there's so much builds on what we know we're already good at, being agile, working across the region, being able to capitalise on opportunities as they come up, that we need to ensure as we go forward with this bid, as Councillor Mudd pointed out, that we bring on the right stakeholders to allow this to happen. And I would suggest that Councillor Burnett from Vale of Glamorgan would be a useful part of the early conversation because of her original work in innovation, but also because of the work that she's doing on the prosperity funds and that piece that is really important for our region of closing the inequality gap.
Great, thank you.
Great, and that segues well on to Liz then.
Thank you. I was going to put my hand up. Go, oh, please, can I help? I think that one of the key things that we all, that we need to be mindful of is that most of the employment we're going to be talking about for the future hasn't really been thought about yet. So it's hugely important that the innovation investment is absolutely crucial to our future to actually achieve the jobs of tomorrow. So any contribution that I can make, whatever, I would be delighted.
Terrific, thank you.
Great, thanks. That'd be very welcome, Liz. Any other comments before we move to the recommendations? If not, the recommendations are at paragraph 34. It's recommended that Cardiff Capital Region Joint Cabinet notes and endorses the key principles outlined above in respect of building a strong sense of readiness for delivering a regional approach for investment zones, including the convening of a small group to scope potential for the Innovation Board, as set out in the Regional Economic and Industrial Plan. Is anyone happy to move or second that one?
Sean Morgan,
Happy to move it,
Council. Happy to move.
Happy to second it, Chair. Mary Ann Brocklesby, Monmouthshire County Council.
Great, thank you both. So if I can come to the vote then, if I take Cafelli first then.
Yeah, happy to agree.
Thanks, Sean. Then Monmouthshire.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to agree.
Okay, then Blyna Gwent.
Happy to agree, Chair.
So, and Newport.
Thanks, Chair. Happy to agree.
Jane. Merthyr.
Happy to agree, Chair.
All right. RCT.
Yeah, happy to agree, Chair.
Vale of Glamorgan.
Happy to agree, Chair.
Thanks, Liz, and thanks for all your contributions there. Torvine, happy to agree. So that's carried with the 8 votes. Should we move then to item 9, which is the appointment of the interim deputy monitoring officer? Over to Kelly initially there.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll make this one very fast. We have to have a monitoring officer. It's a requirement of our agreements with UK government for Cardiff Capital Region City Deal. And of course, it's a statutory requirement for the South East Wales CJC. We are unfortunately losing our monitoring officer and Cardiff's deputy monitoring officer very shortly. So James Williams, as many of you will know, is about to join Monmouthshire County Council, and we wish him well and thank him for his great service. In the meantime, and in the interim, to appointing the executive team for the Cardiff Capital Region CJC, we have to appoint an interim monitoring officer. We have done so. We've gone to an agency and we've secured somebody as the locum monitoring officer for the next 6 months. Her name is Jane Lagrua. She's named in the report. She's got an extensive background, both in terms of commercial, private and government law. So I'm sure she'll be an excellent addition to the team on that interim basis. You can see some of the details set out there in paragraph 6, 7 and 8, because of course we still have to enter the service level agreements with Cardiff Council, which will remain the employing authority for the foreseeable future and until that lift and shift is enacted. And then, Chair, at paragraph 15, you'll see the recommendations just in relation to those interim appointments. And of course, you will also receive this report for the South East Wales Corporate Joint Committee. So I'll leave it there. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thanks, Kelly. Any questions, colleagues? Okay, the recommendations are at paragraph 15. It's recommended that Regional Cabinet notes and agree to proposed arrangements as set out in the body of the report to enable Cardiff Council as accountable body to continue to discharge the monitoring officer role for the City Deal Joint Committee in accordance with the Joint Working Agreement. Secondly, specifically, we note that Jane LeGros is to be appointed by Cardiff Council to act as interim deputy monitoring officer of the City Deal Joint Committee from the 11th of October. And subject to approval by Cardiff Council on the 26th of October, is to be designated as the interim monitoring officer of the City Deal Joint Committee with effect from the 1st of November this year. And lastly, that we authorise the Cardiff Capital Region Director to make any necessary arrangements on behalf of the Regional Cabinet in relation to the interim monitoring officer appointments, including entering into or amending any agreements and any service level agreements with Cardiff Council. Can I have a mover and a seconder for those, please?
Happy to move, Chair. Liz Burnett, Vedic Morgan.
Thanks, Liz.
Happy to second, Chair.
Thanks, Marianne. Okay, so we move to a vote then. Valerie Morgan first then.
Agreed, Chair.
Is Mama Share?
Agreed, Chair.
Great. RCT?
Agreed, Chair.
Thanks. Merthyr?
Agreed, Chair.
Going. Caerphilly?
Agreed.
Sean. Newport?
Thank you, Chair. Agreed.
Jane. Barney Gwent?
Agreed.
Helen and Torvine is agreed, so that's carried with the 8 votes. Thank you, colleagues. That brings us to the end of the public meeting, and we need to now move to exempt session.